Hi, I'm Gabby. Welcome to another episode of the Happier Life Project, brought to you by the free, award-winning mental health and wellness app, My Possible Self. I'm going to try to make this intro super quick as we've another big conversation to get into. We are revisiting the relationship alcohol plays on our mental health, our well-being, our relationship with ourselves and others, and our productivity. Sara Kaufman-Bradstreet is a sober coach who has gathered an impressive presence on social media. She's very active on Instagram and has to date 120,000 followers on TikTok. Sara started her alcohol-free journey by deciding to give herself a 30-day break from booze. She found the results to be so profound and life-changing. It spurred her on to continue living a life alcohol-free, and she has recently hit the 5-year milestone of her sobriety. A former teacher for 18 years after Sara's initial 30-day alcohol-free challenge, Sara has worked tirelessly since to share as much content as she can online to help others see that they aren't alone in their struggles with alcohol, by breaking down this seemingly huge task into easy and doable steps. Sara leads 30-day alcohol-free challenges that allow people to experience an alcohol-free life with guidance and support. There's one, in fact, coming up on the 1st of July. More info on that towards the end of our chat. Sara also leads an online community where she hosts weekly group coaching calls, helping others to reevaluate their relationship with alcohol. And Sara is host of the No More Wasted Days podcast with her friend and fellow sober life advocate, Heather PG. In today's conversation, we discuss Sara's personal journey of breaking the cycle of nightly drinking, followed by hungover days. I found it particularly inspiring to learn that Sara did all of this without going to AA or entering another program. And we also talk about why you don't need to wait until you, air quotes, hit rock bottom to review your relationship with alcohol. We also chat about navigating the dating scene after quitting booze, finding natural ways to replace the buzz, discovering your identity and passions without alcohol in the mix, and so much more. So, ready to find a healthier, happier you? Let's get started. Welcome, Sara Kaufman-Bradstreet. You're an alcohol-free coach helping others stop the cycle of nightly drinking and hungover days. And that's taken directly from your Instagram page. Yep. But before we get into it, I wanted to share with you, speaking of Instagram, just a little sweet story, actually. So before we took a break with the pod during the Easter period, I put a post out on Instagram saying, what are some of the subjects that you'd like me to cover more, or maybe I haven't covered before? And the one that I got the most response from was about drinking. And then literally, I think it was the next day, I got your email and I was like,
that is so cool.
Ask and the universe will, provide. I was like, wow, that was easy. I didn't even need to look.
Research done.
Yeah. So we've already got to understand a little bit about your background from me sharing the bio at the start of the pod. So I'd love to jump into the origins of your story in relation to how you got to where you are now. Before you quit alcohol, what was your relationship like with booze?
Oh, gosh. It was one that had evolved to being, I had gotten myself into the area of problem drinking, even though that was the last thing I would admit to anybody. I was living in the not so much a lie. I was living in my own truth that my drinking was completely under control and it was completely normal compared to everybody else in the world. But it's also because I was surrounding myself with other drinkers and making sure that all my people were on the same level as me.
Mm.
And I was just stuck in a cycle of drinking. And eventually it became drinking every night and then having hangovers almost every day. I always tell people, they say, oh, I don't get hangovers. And I'm like, no, you do. Like, you think you don't at a certain point because you've gotten so used to living at that level of energy that you have when you're hungover. But even on my weekdays, I had this minor hangover. And it wasn't like a headache. It wasn't being sick to my stomach. It was living just at a really low vibe, low energy. And on the weekends, my hangovers were disasters that I would fix by drinking more because that is a magical cure you find out as you drink. And I was just really stuck in this cycle and I kept questioning my drinking when I would be drunk. That was the time where I would start going,
Oh.
I think I have a problem with this. But then I would wake up in the morning and be like, oh, no, no, you just have to do it better. Like, you just have to get better at drinking responsibly was always my whole thing to myself.
Right.
And then it just escalated because I wasn't a drinker in my teens. And in my 20s, I feel like I was a quote unquote normal drinker, but I was definitely a binge drinker. Anytime I would drink too much. And that's something now I can look back and go, whoa, that was out of control. Like it was not normal, but I couldn't see it because it was just my normal. And it just slowly evolved. I quit the one time I was pregnant and I have twins now. So I was pregnant one time, had my twins, didn't drink for just a little while after they were born, but then slowly went right back into my old drinking patterns. And I would have little moments here and there where I would take a break and they just wouldn't last. Either I would quit before I said the break was going to be over, or I would make it through that break and go, oh, that proves I'm fine. I'll get back to my drinking life and I'll do it better. Never did it better. And then it just escalated. And finally, after my 40th birthday, my husband was on this wild ride of drinking too much with me. And he finally was like, I don't think I'm going to drink anymore. And I was floored. I was like, what? Excuse me? Like, we consult each other in everything we do, and you're going to make this huge life choice. But to him, it wasn't this huge life choice. It was just kind of like, I can see that this is no longer serving me. I'm not going to do this. It wasn't so cut and dry for me. I was like, okay, I'm going to do a little test and I'll quit for 30 days. But in the meantime, I had been questioning my drinking, feeling like maybe this is out of control. Maybe it's not. Maybe I can just moderate. And thought to myself, well, if I can quit for 30 days, then I can decide what I want to do moving forward. So that's how it all started. And that 30 days turned into what is now almost 5 years alcohol free.
By the time this goes out, it will be 5 years. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Did you ever, because I think so many people can relate to that story, the drinking questioning. And it sounds like to me, and we're going to go back into binge drinking and the cultural thing of, especially in your 20s, you can do silly things and it can just all be chalked off to being a young adult, let's say.
Yeah.
Was there any times during your drinking where you hit a low point? Because it sounds to me that you were, I don't want to say functioning alcoholic because we are not using the term alcoholic anymore, but you were functioning as a heavy drinker.
Yeah.
So like some people, the catalyst is like the low point. Did you ever get to that level? I suppose I'm wondering.
I did not get to like the quintessential rock bottom. And I'm so thankful that I didn't, but I was waiting. I remember telling myself, you'll know it's a problem when it interferes with your marriage. It makes it so your job is hard to do. You get a DUI. Like, that's when I'll know I have a problem. And I would always be like, I haven't had any of that stuff happen yet. I get my kids to school on time. I take care of my family. I cook us dinner almost every single night. I have a stable job. So in my mind, I was like, no, I'm good. But now I can look back and realize I had all these little moments. There were like these little teeny tiny rock bottoms, and they were just all adding up. The hangovers, the blackouts, not remembering moments, and just going, oh my gosh, it all adds up. And I always tell people, like, don't wait for the rock bottom. And if you're telling yourself like I was, like, oh, well, just wait. If something bad happens, then you know there's a problem, but you don't actually have to wait for that bad thing to happen. You can
Yeah.
actually get ahead of it.
I'm so glad that you went in that direction with your answer. Or I mean, I know it was your honest answer, but I think that's the point, isn't it? It's like so many people go, well, I could stop whenever I want. And yeah, it's almost like they're holding that card of the rock bottom. And it's like, well, if I can
Yeah.
get up and go to work every day, then I don't have a problem, even if I drink a couple of bottles of wine a night or whatever, whatever. Did you ever suffer then from, I'm going to come out with all the cliches. Sounds like the
That's fine.
beer fear would be one, anxiety, booze blues, all these things that are like cute masks of anxiety, depression, and, panic.
Oh, yeah. Oh, totally. I remember having anxiety that was so bad. I'd be like on Facebook going, hey, what does everybody do for their anxiety? Because mine's out of control. And all these people are saying, I know it's not fun, but I quit drinking. And I was like, well, that is the stupidest answer. I'm going to ignore that one. And I'm going to try that supplement. And I'm going to do, okay, I'll start exercising more. And they were like all things that I was already doing. And I can't tell you how many people on that post said, I quit drinking and it helped a lot. And I was like, these people, that's the thing keeping me like my stress level at the right amount. Like I was so wrong. And when I quit drinking, all of a sudden anxiety is gone. It was kind of a magical moment for me. Now, I will say, as I've aged, anxiety is coming back and I'm having to learn how to manage it again. But it's so much easier when you're not drinking because you can rule that one out. And you can say, okay, it's not that. It's not alcohol use. It's not drug use. Let's check on diet. Let's check on this. Let's check on all these other things. And the anxiety was the worst, where the next day you were just feeling terrible about yourself, terrible about life. I always tell people that that's when I would have the deep thoughts to myself, like, what is life all about? And I would get stuck in this whole spiral of like, oh no, I'm just wasting my life. This is terrible. And it's just kind of interesting how you can just go into these shame spirals and you don't connect the dots that like, oh, maybe it's the booze. And even having people tell me, oh, I cut out drinking, I was like, oh, forget that. But it really is. It just messes with your brain chemistry so much. So if you take it away, you can really start going, okay, now I can help my brain start to function the way it's supposed to.
Looking back, what are some of the reasons that you turned to drink?
Gosh, I feel like I had so many different reasons, but I really do feel like one of the original reasons I did it was it made me feel very comfortable in my skin and like I could be a fun person for people. So it was a big socializing piece for me in the beginning. And it was the thing and people always told me like, oh, you're a fun drunk. You are so hilarious when you drink. So to me, that really fed my ego of like, okay, do this. This is what people like. This is how I'll fit in. And I've always been kind of the black sheep. I'm the black sheep of my family, very loved by my family, but definitely do things a little different.
In case they're listening.
Yeah. Yeah. It is just like, I'm a black sheep person. I stand out from the crowd, but also I wanted that everybody wants to fit in with a group.
Yeah.
And even though I had my little black sheep crew, I also wanted to be, it's stupid to say, but fit in with the quote unquote popular kids, even in my late 30s, even in my 20s. It's like, it was my thing that could be my in with all the crowds. And I think that's where it started. It obviously evolved and there were other reasons for just drinking to deal with stress, drinking to make the mundane seem fun. There were a lot of different things in there.
So, as you already mentioned, you didn't decide, right, that's enough, I'm going to quit alcohol. You thought, okay, I'm going to try it for 30 days.
Yeah.
How difficult was it at first, that, say, first week for you? Or did you find that it wasn't as bad as you thought it would be?
It was not as bad as I thought it would be, but I feel like I walked into it with a different mindset this time because all of the other times that I had tried to do it, I really was like, this is totally a break. I'm going to go back to drinking afterwards. And when I would do it that way, I was only quitting drinking and I would be going, this is kind of boring. Like, I can't wait to get back to drinking. That's going to be the first thing I do after this 21-day break, 30-day break, whatever I would be doing.
Mm.
And this time I was really being on the side of, why don't I check out Alcohol Free World and see what that's all about? Because I already know what drinking world looks like. And I'm feeling a little stuck in drinking world. So I was giving myself the out of, if you don't like it, you can go back to your drinking life. Nobody's telling you you can't. But I was also trying to be really curious. And I think that that helped a lot. And I was really open to seeing all of the good things coming my way. And I started seeing that the good things were way outweighing the bad things. And yeah, I was a little bored. Like my only hobby was drinking. So when I quit, I had to refine hobbies, figure out how to fill pockets of time that were normally filled with drinking. So that was work.
Hmm.
But honestly, all of the good stuff was so worth it. But I really think it was the mindset piece that time, just looking at it as like, this could be a gift. This could be a game changer to your life. And I think at that point too, I had heard enough people say, like, quitting drinking gave me this, quitting drinking gave me that. And I had read some books about quitting drinking. So I think having that piece in my head helped a lot too.
Yeah. How did your life improve then so quickly after 30 days that you were like, all right, I'm going to stick with this?
Well, definitely like the hangover piece was just a game changer.
Yeah.
Realizing that, wow, I've had a hangover for like my life is how it
Right.
felt. Like, oh my God, I've just been in a lifelong hangover. And that's why when people are like, I don't even get hangovers, I'm like, you do. Trust me, like your body will function on such a better level without alcohol. And that piece was just amazing. The anxiety going away was huge because I was really stuck in I would get so hung up on okay, today we have this on the agenda. I have to make sure this kid gets here and this kid gets there and what's for dinner. And those things would send me into an anxiety spiral. And that stopped happening pretty quick. And I think it is because I also wasn't trying to fit in my drinking to the schedule. And I wasn't fitting in thinking about drinking into the schedule. And that helped a ton. And then my sleep improved really quick. And that's not something that happens to everybody. I thought it was. I was so like, and then your sleep will improve. And other people were like, yeah, it's not the case for everyone. And obviously everyone is different. But I was a person who would wake up every night at like 3 a.m. I know people talk about that time a lot, but it was happening almost every night, waking up at 3 a.m. and almost in a panic attack state. So to be woken up from deep sleep, but be panicking is the strangest thing. And then I couldn't get back to sleep. So to ditch that, it was just, I could go on and on because I feel like there were so many changes in just the 30 days.
What about managing any difficult emotions? And actually, I believe you said on your pod, in fact, I think you said it more than once, that when you stopped, it was like walking around without skin.
Yeah, that's something that Heather, my co-host, always
Oh, was it?
says.
Is it? It's Heather. Sorry.
It's fine.
Come on.
No, I
Yeah.
love that though when she says it.
Yeah, but like, could you relate to that?
Oh, yeah. Because like I was getting to feel all the good feelings. And that was so awesome to really, really feel the good feelings. Because one thing alcohol does is it depresses our body and
Yeah.
our senses and all the stuff. So even the happy times weren't as happy as they could be. So that was super elevated.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden you're feeling anger. I feel like that was the one that was throwing me in the beginning. Like I would get angry at things and I was like, what is this? And how do I deal with it? Because I'm just not normally an angry person, or I didn't think I was. But it turned out that I could shut that down really easily with drinking.
Mhm.
Like, oh, I'm irritated with my husband. I'll drink. Okay, now I'm not irritated with my husband. Great. But then it turned out that I had to learn how to communicate with people and ask for what I want out of a relationship. And that piece is still difficult for me,
Yeah.
but it's something I work on a lot. And it's something that's so much better when you actually just start moving through it, which is difficult, but really helpful.
Yeah. So then, did you come up with any strategies for managing your feelings if you couldn't reach for the bottle?
Oh, yeah. I'm like, one thing I always tell people is like, have your baseline activities that you do to support your mental health every single day. And
Mm.
every day I wake up and do a morning routine. And I know some people are like, ugh, the morning routine. I don't want to wake up early. But I am a person who can get things done in the morning. It works for me. So I wake up really early before my family and I do a meditation. I just do a guided meditation through an app. There's nothing crazy about it. And then I do daily affirmations where I write down positive things that I want to see coming my way, positive beliefs that I need to believe about myself. And then I write down things to be grateful for each day. And that happens every single morning. And then I do a workout. So every single morning, except for the weekends, I do give myself a weekend pass where I actually sleep in and maybe I'll do a piece of the morning routine, but I don't do all of it all the time. But those things are just keeping you at a healthier emotional state. So when it is time to deal with the emotions, you're at this healthy baseline where you can do it more efficiently.
Yeah.
And remember those immediate tools like breathing and journaling, writing out the pros and cons list, just telling yourself like, okay, I've got to manage this, working through it with self-talk and all of those things.
Mm. Were you scared or nervous to stop drinking and maybe address some uncomfortable feelings? Because I think when people are considering abstaining from alcohol, this is perhaps one of the biggest reasons they don't
Mhm.
feel like they can, because they're like, oh God, I don't want to open Pandora's box.
Yeah. I think the thing I was the most afraid of is that nobody would like me anymore. It was
Oh,
this like
you're
all
so
my friends.
likable.
I can see that now. I think I really always thought that the drinking, like my drinking persona was so fun, and she was. But it's also like it turned out that was just my socializing persona. It turned out it was actually just me, and I didn't need the alcohol to do it. And I had to find the courage to believe that. And
Mm.
that was really hard. I think one of the reasons I held back quitting for so long was because I didn't want to explain it to people. I didn't want to admit that I had a problem because that would be a whole nother thing of explaining that to people. And I didn't want people to look at me in a different way, which now I know. I'm like, I know that my drinking friends probably still have their thoughts about me not drinking, but I'm so much better now at saying, well, that's on them. If they have questions about it, they can ask me. And I'm obviously an open book because I share it all on social media. But it's easier to not take ownership over their feelings anymore, which I really think I was doing when I was sitting there going, oh, what are all my friends going to say? And I'm like, you're 40. Go do
Yeah.
what's good for you. Stop worrying about your friends. But I was so scared to quit. I didn't know what I was going to be like without alcohol.
The social aspect is definitely, I think, a big factor as well. I have never gotten away with not having a hangover. I am what people would say a lightweight. And a lot of people don't believe me when I say after one glass of something, I can feel absolutely awful. So I
Hmm.
did a full year without drinking and I can go months and months without drinking. But I have noticed that like the biggest challenges come from social get-togethers where everybody else is drinking and then they're like, oh, you're not going to have one. And I'm the same. I've gotten so much better at just being like, nah. Or now they don't even ask because they know I'm more likely to not be than to be. But
Yeah.
I want to go home from that night out. I've enjoyed my time because it's genuinely fun, not
Hmm.
because I've made it fun through poison, basically. And I want to
Yeah.
get a good night's sleep at the end of the night.
Right? And you get to remember the whole night.
Yeah.
There's just so many benefits. And it is scary and it is awkward when you first socialize without it, when you're really, really used to that being your norm.
Mm.
But it's totally doable. I still have the thoughts. Like I sing with a community choir and everybody's talking about, oh, let's do a tour to Europe. And I'm like, oh my God, I don't know if I want to travel with everybody because I don't know if they know that I don't drink. And that's going to be like a whole a whole can of worms that I don't want to deal with. And it's like a year away and my brain already kind of goes there. But it's like they're planning a karaoke night and somebody already made a joke of like, well, we don't even need to be worried. None of us are big drinkers here. And everybody started laughing because obviously there are some in the crew. And I'm sitting there being like, I don't drink, but I will still be super fun.
But also,
And
maybe you
it's
will
just
go to
like
bed a bit
this.
earlier and then you'll get to explore Europe, which is amazing, speaking from somebody in
Yeah,
Europe right now, you
yeah,
know?
exactly. I
Yeah.
know. Now I look at it and I'm like, wow, what a cool opportunity to actually go do this and not be hungover, not waste time being like, I'm going to try all the beers and try all the wines. I'm like, well, that can be fun, but there's so much more to offer at every single place that you can travel. So,
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Just kind of going back to the social thing because it feels like the right place to talk about it. Our app users are predominantly female, not excluding the guys. This applies to you as well. And a lot of them are in the 20s and 30s. So for me, as well as the social side with friends, dating and drinking, I would love to know some of
oh,
your
yeah.
thoughts there. And even like quite recently, I went on a date with somebody who, like, I didn't want to drink. I'd had a stressful week, and the last thing I wanted to do was drink. But he wanted to go out for dinner, ordered a bottle of wine, and I was like, I'm good. I'll just like stick to my sparkling water. But he was like, well, if you're not drinking, I'm not going to drink. And he really made me feel kind of pressured. So I thought, all right, well, I'll have one because, whatever. And then I had the worst headache ever. And it came on pretty quickly as well. And suffice to say, I've not seen him again, but I didn't need to steady my nerves or anything like that, but just still this expectation.
Yeah.
And maybe it's not even yours, it's projected on you by the person in your life that maybe you're dating or maybe you're in some kind of relationship with. So, yeah, I'd love to know your thoughts. Not kind of cool, but kind of handy for you that you and your husband freed yourself from booze at the same time, right?
Yeah. At the same
Yeah.
time. I know. I always feel like this question is so hard for me to answer, but we have people in the Daymakers community who have gone through single dating life without drinking.
Mm.
And one of the guys in the group said, I hop on a Zoom now before I go on a date. And it kind of cracked me up at first. And he's like, but I'm just pretty out there with it. And I say, I don't drink. If that's going to be an issue for you, then we're not going to work. And I'm like, wow,
Oh,
that's really forward.
you say he
But
hops on a Zoom?
he does I don't know if he does it anymore, a pre-Zoom date. Like he's like, I don't have time. Like,
You couldn't just send me a text.
I
Like,
know. I would too. I do think it was more within the closer to the pandemic time where when that seemed a little more normal to
okay.
hop on a Zoom first. But I was thinking, I was like, well, that's kind of interesting. But I do think that's something, if it's a non-negotiable for you,
Mm.
that you don't drink and alcohol doesn't really serve a purpose in your life, it's something worth checking out with other people because a dating partner is a little bit different than someone you're going to go out and do a few things with every now and then. I guess that's kind of the piece too. Like, what are you looking for in a partner? Are you looking for somebody who's a long-term relationship? Because
Mm.
then alcohol's just not a priority in your life. And if it's a priority in someone else's life, that could be something where it's just really hard to navigate. And if
Yeah.
you're feeling pressured by somebody that early on something so small like alcohol, it
Yeah.
is kind of like, well, what else is going to irritate that person? And they're going to try to be like, no, do it this way. And it's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it's a really cool time to be a super independent woman and be like, nope, this is what's important to me. These are my priorities.
Yeah. I think people, for the most part, trying to be careful with my words, don't really like to drink alone. They'd rather have a buddy to do that with. So if it's in
Yes.
the context of dating where it's so there's one person and another person, so there's nobody else can be like, oh, it doesn't matter, they're not having a drink, I'll have a glass with you or share a bottle of wine with you or
Mhm.
whatever. Yeah, it's happened to me a few times where I'm like, I'm not drinking. And then the other person who I know would love to have a drink is like, oh, well, if you're not drinking, I'm not drinking. And then you just feel sometimes a little bit backed into a corner.
Right. You do. And it's still, that feels awkward to me, even still, when people will say to me, like, is it okay if I have a drink around you? And I'm like, yeah. Like, I'm not gonna
Yeah.
catch your drinking, I promise. And
Yeah.
there's a part of me that's always like, I know they're trying to be nice,
Yeah.
but it does make you feel more awkward when it's pointed out. One thing I always have to remind myself is that That's something that needs to be done on their own inner work and them becoming more confident in their own skin and with their relationship with alcohol. Because I do think a lot of times when one person isn't drinking, the other person can be like, oh, this is shining a huge light on my choice to drink,
Mm.
especially if you were drinkers together at one point. That was something with friends that I had to navigate where they were like, well, can I drink around you still? And I'm like, please just be your normal self. Please be exactly what you were in the relationship. I'm just not going to be drinking anymore. Like,
Yeah.
but I know that people look at it and go, well, we kind of drink the same amount. Like,
Yeah.
so what does that mean for me? Should I make this life choice? It can be difficult for sure.
Yeah. I don't want to make this into the Gabby dating diaries, but it is making making me think of somebody else who I went out with that when I said, "Oh no, I'm not really a big drinker. I don't want to drink tonight." And they were like, "Why did you have a problem?"
Oh God.
And I thought, wow, that's the immediate thing that, somebody jumps to because that's the thing though. It's so societally
Right?
normal for somebody to choose not to drink in a
Yeah.
social circumstance like a date that it's like, oh, you must have a problem. What's that quote that it's like alcohol is the only addiction you don't have to justify not stopping or some I'm butchering it, but
Yeah,
there's
no, I totally know. I can never remember that one either. But it's
yeah.
kind of the same. Like I quit smoking cigarettes. I don't even remember when, but people congratulated me. People who smoked were like, "Oh, good for you. I need to quit too." But then when you quit drinking, they're like, "Why? Do you think you had a
Yeah.
problem with it?" And you're
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, it's an addictive substance." And whoops, I got addicted to it. Isn't that crazy how it works? And it's like
Mhm.
almost the same with, I know it's a much lower level, but like caffeine, when somebody is like, oh no, I'm not drinking coffee anymore, you're never like, why? You're usually like, oh, okay, good
Yeah.
for you. And
Yeah.
is like if people could switch that mindset. But that was one of my biggest fears is that people would be like, did you quit because you have a problem? And I was always like, how am I going to answer that? Because I didn't even know if I couldn't even admit that I had a drinking problem for probably like 2 years into my sobriety. I was like, I was just an over drinker.
Yeah.
And it took me a while to finally look and go, oh, it turns out I just have a really addictive personality. So,
Well, you've led me perfectly into talking about addictive personalities. And I've done a little bit of research on the old World Wide Web and the concept of an addictive personality. So you just labeled yourself with that, right? Which is really interesting. So we can all be addicted to all sorts of things: exercise, a person, food, substances, vapes and cigarettes, as well as booze. So you saying you've got an addictive personality, did you replace the addiction, if we call it that, with alcohol? Did you throw yourself into something else to fill that void?
in the beginning, I actually used THC products and was like, oh, this is an okay swap because the thing I'm trying to get away from is alcohol. But
Right.
then I could quickly see like, oh, I'm just falling into the same patterns with this where I'm trying to like hide it, make it not look like a big deal. It's legal where I live, so it's like easy to get. And it was just kind of all of a sudden I was like, oh, it's just happening here too.
Mm.
And then obviously with caffeine is my one still, it's still there hanging on.
Mm.
But it is kind of that thing where I just think other things are going to pop up because your brain is like, well, what do I get now? If I don't get this alcohol, what can you give me? And that was something that was easy to do at first and tell myself it was just for fun. It was just for the weekends until it wasn't. Like it was very much like played the same role that alcohol did, where I was like, oh, now it's an everyday thing. And now I'm feeling bad about it. Now I'm feeling negative about it. Beyond that, it was food was definitely a whole thing. And at the beginning, I was like, I'll eat anything I want to as long as I can get through not drinking. And then I got crazy with restricting calories and tracking that and having total control over that. And then I let go
Oh,
of that. It's just been a whole like try to walk the cycle and try to figure out and learn more about myself and just
I-
kind of see. We always say, like, we're just people who go big or go home. So,
well, it's really interesting. I believe it's quite a common thing that when somebody who has drunk a lot of alcohol quits, they turn to sugar because there's so
Oh,
much
yeah.
sugar in alcohol. And I know
Hmm.
that firsthand from people in my own family that, yeah, definitely had a problem and then got a really sweet tooth, which is obviously the lesser of the two evils by far.
Right. Yeah, there's TikToks out there that are like, yeah, you can't get arrested and have your family taken away because of your sugar addiction. And
Right,
it's like,
right.
okay, that's true. But it's more for me with like the transfer addictions is the how similar it feels to the drinking and how you get stuck in that guilt and shame spiral and the negative self-talk to yourself to where if it's something that you can just get rid of and say, okay, I'm going to go on a sugar detox or a whatever detox. But obviously there's just some things in your life that you need and you have to learn how to manage. And
Yeah. I
it's,
wonder if some of it is self labeling. Well, I've got an addictive personality as well. And I say
yeah.
that because I'm going to share with you some research. Okay, here we go. According to the National Library of Medicine, within the field of this is specifically substance abuse, it is now widely admitted that the addictive personality does not exist. No one personality type is predisposed to addiction. So then I got this from an article on the BBC website. Many psychiatrists and addiction experts say there is no scientific evidence supporting the idea of an addictive personality. They also warn that the concept is harmful as it suggests that people have little to no control over whether they become addicted. They do note that there are some links between certain personality traits and addiction, but these are far more complex than the addictive personality claim often indicates. So, Mark Griffiths, a professor of behavioural addiction at Nottingham Trent University in the UK, describes the addictive personality as a complete myth. Ian Hamilton, associate professor in addiction at the University of York in the UK, says the idea that your personality determines whether or not you become addicted to a substance would have suited the pharmaceutical industry very well. It kind of lets them off the hook. The message is if you're weak enough to develop a problem with our product, it's due to your personality. It's nothing to do with us. So I'd love to know your thoughts on all of that, Sarah.
I love that. I think that is so cool because it is something when I quit, I was like, I don't want to be an alcoholic. I don't want anybody to call me that because it just had a lot of stigma to it, right? And I can joke around and say I have an addictive personality and all of that, but I truly believe it's not the person, it's the substance. It's an addictive substance, and we need to be taught that it's an addictive substance, and we're not. Like
Mm-hmm.
cigarettes are widely known to be addictive
Mm-hmm.
and they're labeled as such. And they're like, hey, be careful because if you smoke one, it can turn into a lifelong battle with it. And it's just, and people take it really seriously. They're like, okay, I'm going to listen to that and be really careful about it. And somehow alcohol gets this pass. And I know in certain countries, they're starting to label it now with more warnings and really say, hey, this is addictive. It's actually not good for you.
Yeah.
And I think we're always taught like, as long as you're not an alcoholic, you're good. You can just learn how to drink responsibly. And I was so stuck in that for a long, long time. Like, but I'm not an alcoholic because an alcoholic is somebody who loses their family. An alcoholic is somebody who loses their job, all these things, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it turns out it's just a really addictive substance.
Yeah. Life is hard and we all need to self soothe,
Yeah.
don't we? And then it does tend to be the things that are bad for us are the things that also can bring us comfort, or at least
Yeah.
that's what we are led to believe.
Yeah. No, I think that is so cool that that research is out there too. And because I do think it's one of the things that holds people back and it makes them take a label and say, well, this is just who I am. And
Mm.
it's like, well, not really. It is who you've become because the substance has done its job.
Mm.
And like you need, when you first start drinking, one drink gets you a little drunk. After a while, you need two. After a while, you need three. Because that's always my joke with people when they say, well, why don't you have just one every now and then? I'm like, because one isn't cool. Like one doesn't do anything to me. I'm sure it would now. But back in the day, I was like, I don't want one. I want like three. And I'm like,
Yeah.
that's why I don't have one. And I think that if people could embrace that a little bit more, and if it could be more widespread, because I think even with kids, it's taught like, well, make sure you drink really responsibly, but
Mm.
nobody's saying like, make sure you do that cocaine really responsibly, okay? And it's also one is legal and one is not. But
Yeah, such good points. And just going back to the whole drinking responsibly thing, and something you talked about in your sort of origin stories with alcohol, and it's a big problem in the UK and other countries too. And this is binge drinking and these bender weekends.
yeah,
And I think this speaks directly to perhaps most of our app users who do like to have a drink at the weekend, because of we know that the highest demographic are people in their 20s and 30s that will be listening. So breaking free from this lifestyle, and again with the identity and the not wanting to be the black sheep, you want to fit in with your friends, you don't want to feel excluded when girls are getting dressed up together for a night out and then they're popping open the whatever, and then you're the one that's like not on the same level.
Yep.
So what are your thoughts there?
On the binge drinking weekends, gosh, that one's really hard because that was just my life. The weekends were, people always want to know, how much did you used to drink? And I'm always like, okay, we don't need to find that out to compare our drinking to decide if we have a problem or not. But I was drinking like 2 to 5 drinks a night. And on the weekends, I always tell people it was a bender.
Yeah.
Like the weekends were a bender because it was appropriate.
Yeah, that's it. It's kind of justified somehow.
Yeah, like that's what you do on the weekends. You just drink way too much, right? So then all of a sudden when you don't, you're like, what do I do on the weekends? And it is awkward when you have a group of friends doing, like, if you're hanging out with all the girls and getting ready to go do something, it is a little awkward to be the one that's not. But what I always try to tell people is try to it's more the energy that you're bringing. It's not the drink in your cup. You can be on their level until you don't want to be anymore, because at some point being with super drunk people is not very entertaining. But being with people who are drinking at the beginning of an evening or whatever, that's all fine and dandy. And I think as long as you've got that same energy level and then know when it's time to go home. I think a lot of us overthink the leaving the evening once everybody has gotten too drunk. But I always remind people that drunk people don't really get it because they're on a different planet at some point. And I don't mean to say that in a bad way, because that was me. And I know that when people would leave and I was drinking, I was like, I'm okay as long as I still have a few more drinkers with me. So if somebody's leaving the party, I'm going to say bye, have a good night. And I'm not going to think anything differently of them. And that's something that I've had to tell myself as a non-drinker. Like, it's okay to leave once the party isn't fun for you anymore as a sober person. So I'm not sure if I answered that question very well, but.
Yeah, no, definitely. I love the thing about matching the energy.
Yeah.
Regardless. Going back to, we already talked about some of the reasons why a person might turn to drink: self-soothing, numbing, distracting, letting off steam, the chatty mind, turning your brain off for a bit. We're seeking escapism, basically. Mm-hmm. So for those who reach for the bottle for some of the mentioned, how would you suggest we might self-regulate in a more healthy way?
I think the main thing that you have to remember is that when the brain is trying to find alcohol, it's usually trying to find a hit of dopamine, possibly some serotonin, and GABA, which is the thing that shuts down your brain. So if you can start finding the natural replacements for those, it helps. It's never going to do the exact same thing that alcohol did. And that's what I always have to tell people. Like, it's just not going to be the same. But maybe what you need to actually do is go for a walk. And I know that it's like, really? You want me to go for a walk instead of have alcohol when I want to escape life? But yes, I do. I want you to go for a walk and I want you to listen to a funny podcast. And that can be your escape. Somebody else can entertain you for a little while and take you away from your stresses. And by the time you get back, then you can make yourself some sort of non-alcoholic drink and get into your nightly routine. And a lot of times it's past. So start learning those things that give you dopamine, which are getting outside and exercising, soaking up the sun, getting outside. Meditation, I know it's really hard to be like, oh, I really want to drink and I'm going to sit down and meditate. Maybe that's not how it's going to work, but that's why I do a meditation every morning because it gives me a dopamine hit. And if
Mm,
I can keep my dopamine at a certain level, my body's not going to crave it so much at the end of the day. But listening to music, so easy, right?
yeah.
Performing music, if you happen to enjoy making music, dancing. And I know people are always too like, I don't dance, just move your body.
Yeah.
Listen to something good, move your body, and without fail, you'll be like, oh, I feel a lot better. But the one that is really hard, I think, is kind of turning off your brain because
Yes.
the alternatives a lot of times are negative. Because I know one I do is I scroll TikTok or Instagram, and then I get stuck in that spiral, and I'm like, oh my gosh. I think the healthiest one that I found, and it's still not super healthy, is watching a show at the end of the night to unwind. And doing this is the huge challenge, doing it without my phone in my hand, just watching the show and giving my brain one thing to do. And it kind of sets off this trigger to my brain like the day is done. This is the last thing you do today. After this, you get to read a book and go to bed.
Mm.
And I think a lot of times people think it needs to be more than that, but those little things can really, really help.
What about on the flip side, though, when it's you want to replace the buzz you get from alcohol, like
The energy.
the energy side? Yeah. Have you found any natural ways of doing that?
Gosh, that one is super hard. The one thing that helps me is to just go do the thing. And that's easier said than done, right? But
Yeah.
sometimes it is just like, you got to go do something. And this is me a lot on the weekends. I start out my morning on the weekends just chilling out on the couch, drinking coffee, doing whatever kind of computer work I feel like doing. And I try to keep it pretty relaxed. And there always becomes this lull in the day of like, what am I doing with this weekend? Like, am I going to make it a productive weekend? Am I going to go do something fun? And a lot of times I can just do nothing. And that's when I enter the, oh, my life is so boring. I don't do anything. I need some excitement. But if you just go do the thing, all of a
Yeah.
sudden it's fun. Like a lot of times I have to be like, you need to go somewhere. You need to go on a hike. You need to go out to dinner. And it's like you just need to start it. And once you start, it's not so terrible. It's not so
Yeah.
terrible. It like starts flowing. And sometimes it's with people would drink to make cleaning their house fun. But sometimes you just have to start cleaning your house without the thing. That was a huge thing for me with THC. It's like it was my make chores fun on the weekend thing. And I was like, I can clean this whole place if I'm high. And when I quit, I was like, now I just have to clean this whole place. That's really boring.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So it was, but I have found that if I just do it, it starts the ball rolling and then it starts becoming easier and I start getting the hit of dopamine from doing the thing that I said I was going to do, watching the progress take place. So I
Mm.
hope that helps.
Well, and let's bring it all back to the name of your business, No More Wasted Days, which I absolutely love that title. So it's exactly what you just said. It's getting to do all the things because your productivity obviously increases dramatically, right? If you're not
Yeah.
hungover. I also find it really inspiring, and correct me if I've got this wrong from your story, but I don't think I have, that you never went to AA. I
No, I
think
didn't.
you're right. So I think for those really in the throngs of an unhealthy relationship with alcohol, the thought of going to AA or seeking professional help, they're too scared. They think
Hmm.
it's going to be too hard, and they're just like, no, I'm just going to stay as I am, right? What do you say to those people or to people listening that might have somebody who is in that kind of mindset?
That they don't want to do AA or,
Yeah, just that because it sounds like to me there is an alternative,
oh,
perhaps.
yeah. The thing is that there are so many programs out there that are not AA. I didn't want to do any of them, but I only thought AA was the only one. Like I really thought, oh
Yeah,
God, it's only AA. It's the only way to quit. And the first thing you have to do at a meeting is stand up and say, hi, I'm Sara and I'm an alcoholic. And I was sitting there going, I don't think I
yeah,
am. Like I was
yeah.
like, can I stand up and go, I'm an alcoholic? Maybe. Like,
I
and I
wonder if
learned,
they've updated that now that we're
I
not
think they
supposed to
have.
use the
And
term. Yeah,
yeah. And I tell people all the time, like, these were my perceptions.
yeah.
But what I know is other people have these perceptions, that I'm not alone in thinking this. So by sharing this with people, that it's possible to quit without ever taking a label, It's possible to quit without ever going to a meeting, working a program. You can do it on your own. You can do it with the help of outside help if you choose to do that. And there's just no wrong or right way to do it. I also think, I know when I talk about AA, I get a lot of the AA diehards being really mean to me.
Oh,
But what I have to say is I was very stuck in my ego for sure. I was very stuck in this world of like, I don't want to have a problem. Being an alcoholic is something bad. I don't want to be that person. And that was definitely my ego talking to me. And I have since now helped people find AA meetings, helped them find the thing that works for them. So I never want people to think that I'm totally like, I don't like this program. It's terrible. It wasn't for me. It's
mm,
not something that I have done yet. Doesn't even mean I won't ever do it, right?
yeah. Well, it's like finding the right therapist. You don't always win on your first attempt.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and that's the thing too. Like even therapy sounds scary to people.
Yeah.
And so it's just kind of like everything sounds a little scary when you really don't know what it is. But
Yeah. As we're wrapping up this conversation, 5 years sober, do you think you'll ever allow yourself to have an alcoholic drink again?
I say no, but I do when I really, really want to drink, which rarely happens these days. I tell myself, you can have one when you're 80. So you can sometimes I'll
Okay.
talk to my husband. I'll be like, that'll be when I'm pretty old. So I'll probably be pretty drunk because I get to drink when I'm 80. And he'll always start laughing because he knows I'm like, I just don't see any purpose for it in my life. I really don't.
Mm,
And life without it is so much better
mm,
that there's just no reason for me to have just one. And I also know how alcohol works and that just one might work for a few months. And then all of a sudden I'm having just two. And then all of a sudden I'm just back to my old drinking patterns. And I've worked really hard to get where I am. It's just not worth it to me.
yeah. Okay, before we point to all the ways people can check out more of you, I cannot let you go until we close with the Happier Life Project's last 5 in 5. So these are the same 5 questions that I ask every guest to wrap
Oh,
up the
cool.
episode. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, when and where are you at your happiest?
At a lake that we have nearby us called Lake Kokanee. I love to go out and kayak on it and just every time Mother Nature gets me when we go there and I'm just wowed.
That sounds lovely. What's your favorite thing to do that nourishes your mental health?
Probably going on a hike and just getting out in nature again.
Mm-hmm. What piece of advice do you now know that you wished somebody would have told you earlier that would have made you a happier person?
Probably that alcohol wasn't helping me at all and a life without it would be so much easier and happier.
What is the most important one thing that needs to change to make the world a happier place? I know this is a loaded question.
Whoa. I am going to go with, and this may be different in the UK, that there needs to be better mental health support for kids in schools.
Ooh, no, I think that translates everywhere, to be
Okay.
honest.
Yeah. Start earlier.
Yeah. Okay. And finally, what is a simple, actionable first step that we can take when it comes to creating the mindset of a non drinker that will help us on our mission to building a happier life?
I would say start with the mindset piece first. And for me, that was affirmations. Every single day, I wrote down, I do not drink, which now I've learned you're not supposed to put not in affirmations. So I'm always like, disclaimer. But that worked for me. And it made me start believing a new thought. And it also just put me on the path of realizing that thoughts are things that we can change. And they're just truths that we've decided, but we can actually change them. So if you think you're a drinker, which is who I thought I was, change that thought to I'm a non-drinker. I don't drink. I'm alcohol free. I'm free from alcohol. However you want to do it. Have a sentence that you write down and you say every single day.
And if that feels like too much, maybe I'm less of a drinker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a friend who wrote down, I don't drink enough to get a hangover. She would write it down somewhere like I'm hangover free. And that was her whole goal.
Thank you so much. This has been absolutely awesome. So for more on you, where we can find you, you're big on TikTok, aren't you? You've got quite the community there.
I'm on TikTok and I'm on Instagram, and both of those are the same handle. The No More Wasted Days name, but separated by underscores. So it's no underscore more underscore wasted underscore days.
Perfect.
And I think you can find me by just looking up No More Wasted Days or Sara Kaufman-Bradstreet.
Yeah. And your website is nomorewasteddays.co.
Yes. We got rights to com. So if you type it in,
okay,
it'll get redirected now. Okay. It was a big day.
Congrats. I noticed that you've got your next 30-day challenge beginning on the 1st of July. I've got to squeeze this in. The 30-day challenge that you took yourself, this has now become kind of like your calling card for how you help others.
Yeah. I help other people go through a 30-day challenge, and it helps you reevaluate your life being alcohol-free versus your drinking life. And it's pretty much no pressure situation where you can really just say, okay, I'm going to do 30 days just to see what it's like and gather information and decide if this is a lifestyle that I want to keep going with, because that's exactly what I did. And I have 30 videos that guide you through those. They're about 5 to 10 minutes long. Most of them are about 5 minutes because I know people's time is precious, but they just help you think about a little piece of the alcohol-free lifestyle every single day to start helping you come to your own conclusions. And there is a journal that helps you work on your mindset, and there's a workbook that helps you work through the videos. And it's just a really cool thing. I do it 4 times a year. So the next one does start on July 1st, and you can get on the waiting list if you're listening to this. And it's not open yet. You can go get on the waiting list. And then you can also do my 5-day kickstart anytime, which I'm not sure if that's on my website. But
no, I think it is.
Cool.
If you go to your Instagram, I think you can find it from your, what they call a redirect with all the links. Yeah.
And definitely if you're listening to this and you're like, I want to get connected, grab my 10 mantras. They're totally free. And then we're connected by email. I send out 2 emails a week, and they're always just packed with strategies, tips, motivation, and just stories from my life of being alcohol-free.
Yeah. And more on that, of course, on your own podcast, which is called No More Wasted Days too.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. It's you and your pal Heather.
Yes, who actually did the 30-day challenge many years ago, and she just hit her 3-year alcohol-free anniversary. So
nice. And finally, you've got a Daymakers community.
I believe the link to that is within all my socials too. In my link in bio is what they call it.
Right.
But the Daymakers community is where it's an online community. We have a private message thread through an app that is off of social media. And you can check in with people there who are on the journey. People are on all different levels of their journey there. And we host 6 to 8 monthly group coaching calls. So if you want to chat with me 6 to 8 times a month, it's the way to do it.
Awesome. And we'll put all that in the show notes as well. So
thank you.
Click on all the links. Sara, thank you again.
Yes, thank you so much. This was really fun.
Hello, friends. It's Gabby back with you. Thank you again to Sara Kaufman-Bradstreet, and thank you to you for listening to this very episode of the Happier Life Project. As always, just one more minute of your time, please, before I sign off, and that's for the important housekeeping. If you are suffering with your mental health, there is a crisis button on the My Possible Self app, which will signpost you to the correct information for immediate expert advice. Those of you who are listening on one of the podcast platforms and not on the My Possible Self app, the My Possible Self app is completely free to download and access all of the content, so you don't need to worry about it costing you anything. If you are in crisis or you think you may have an emergency, please call your doctor or the emergency services immediately. The views expressed in this podcast are solely those of the interviewer, which is me, and the interviewees. The content of this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and should not be considered as a substitute for professional or medical advice. Our partners at the Priory Healthcare are not involved in the production or content of this podcast. If you are listening on one of the podcast platforms and you haven't already subscribed or left us a review, I'd super appreciate that. It really does help us to grow. and get our message out to as many people as possible who might want a bit of assistance on their own mental health journey. And to find and follow us on social media. If you're not already there, we're most active on Instagram, and you can find us at My Possible Self, and I've been at Radio Gabby. Do take care, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.